When did you just not dodge a bullet, but evade a full-on ballistic missile strike? We're here to find out stories of people who have experienced that. Remember to like and subscribe. We were booked on a cruise around New Zealand back in December 2019. I was psyched for it. We were going to go on a day tour to a volcano. However, our car had a massive engine issue, and we decided to pull the plug because we couldn't afford to fix the car and go away. I'm sitting at work, feeling sorry for myself because I'm not on holiday, when the reports start coming in. On the 9th of December 2019, Wakari White Island, an active stratovolcano island in New Zealand's northeastern Bay of Plenty region, explosively erupted. The island was a popular tourist destination, known for its volcanic activity, and 47 people were on the island at the time. 22 people died either in the explosions or injuries sustained, including 2 whose bodies were never found and were later declared dead. A further 25 people suffered injuries, with the majority needing extensive care for severe burns. It was horrific. The injuries were terrible, and I just sat at work, watching all the raw vision come into the office, thinking about what might have been. If our car hadn't needed that work done, or we were better with our finances, we would have been on that tour. When I moved back to New Orleans in 2004, I looked at 2 different apartments, A and B. I ended up choosing B because it was a little larger. I lived there for about 5 weeks and the neighbors were horrendous, and management wouldn't do anything about it. So I went back to the other place to see if apartment A was still available. It wasn't, but they had another one downstairs in the building next door, so I ended up moving again into apartment C. Apartment B flooded several times in Katrina. Apartment A had their roof ripped off. Apartment C, where I had lived for a year, was fine. I cannot overstress how difficult my life would have been if my apartment had been damaged. Not even taking into account my belongings, it was damn near impossible to find anywhere else to live for years after Katrina. It's not an exaggeration to say that if my apartment had been damaged, the entire trajectory of my life could have been changed. I met a guy online, had a great first meeting. Made out a little. He mentions he knows a friend of mine. I ask her about him. She sends me his Judici page full of SA convictions, including more than one statutory R word. A friend in high school offered to pick me up and sneak out for a party. I was in the middle of a World of Warcraft raid and declined. Turned out he hit a tree and died from drunk driving. I was going to go get dinner at a local deli. Instead, a friend told me about a meteor shower, so we packed snacks and drove to the mountains to watch the meteors. That deli was shot up during a mass shooting that left 6 people dead right during the time I would have been there. Thanks, Tom, and thanks to... I assume that's the name of the meteor, but I cannot for the life of me pronounce that. I had just finished a regular meeting I was the host of when some of my friends said, "Hey, you don't look good." I told him I didn't feel great and was going to go home. He said, "Nah fam, I'm taking you to the doc." We go to the clinic, and after an extremely brief exam, he turns to my friend and says, "Take him to the ER and tell him it's his appendix." Less than an hour away, I was in surgery. Thing is, I had just come back from a dive weekend where I did 2 days of boat dives, 4 hours out in the Red Sea. Multiple dives were below 100 feet. If my appendix had decided to give out a day earlier, I would have probably died. I was in a coma. Didn't look like I'd come out of it. They had the talk with my wife about letting me go. And she said no. Thanks, wife. My husband accidentally took all my blood sugar meds, thinking it was Motrin, when he had severe stomach pains. I didn't know what he was talking about taking all the prescription Motrin, and rushed him to the ER, where I figured out it was my blood sugar meds. It turned out to be acute pancreatitis, and he actually saved his organs and possibly his life by accidentally taking my blood sugar meds. Ah, yes, the rare occasion where two wrongs make a right. I was riding my motorcycle, not too fast. There was a nice spring breeze, so I had my visor open. Then I just randomly decided to close it. As soon as my visor clicked down, I saw a small but sturdy branch fall out of a tree, and it smacked right into my visor and bounced off. Well, that's some spidey sense. 4 years ago, I was diagnosed with a very rare cancer. The specialist told me he could offer no guarantees I'd make it a year. Major surgery to remove a large mass, and many further tests later. I was told months later they actually got it wrong and I never had cancer. The specialist told me that if he made a list of 100 possible outcomes at the start of my treatment, my eventual diagnosis would have been at a position of 100. He'd never seen anything like it. I felt like I dodged a nuclear warhead the day I was told that. So, what was the large mass they removed then if it wasn't cancer? The large mass turned out to be a secondary spleen. The surgeon says that he'd seen that before, but this one was bigger than his fist, which he had never seen, even remotely. I have since been diagnosed with a connective tissue disorder, which is probably the reason I had the secondary spleen in the first place. The combination of the mass spleen on my scan and the symptoms I was suffering made them diagnose me with neuroendocrine tumor initially. I probably pronounced that horribly. 9/11. I was living in Carroll Gardens at the time, a little bit south of the Brooklyn Bridge, and I was commuting via bike. Normally I'd wake up around 8, get my stuff together and ride up Smith Street and go over to Brooklyn Bridge. I'd buy a few dozen Krispy Kreme donuts from the location in WTC for my team and then ride down to Wall Street where I worked. That particular Tuesday I overslept on my alarm and had to take the subway. I would have been at World Trade Center right at the time of the first impact, but instead was on the subway. I actually was walking up out of Wall Street subway stop right as the second plane was coming in and was able to see a little bit of the fireball and hear the citywide scream. Our gas range in the kitchen had malfunctioned. It was leaking natural gas all night. The CO detector never went on. I woke up the following morning, walked downstairs, and smelled it. It was so thick of gas you could taste it. I quickly opened all the doors, windows, and vacated. We waited about an hour before going back in. It was windy out, so it cleared out quickly. We inspected everything, replaced the stove, and went on with the day. Nighttime came around, and I went to take a shower, but there wasn't any hot water. Turns out, for some unknown reason, the pilot light on the hot water tank was out, and likely had been out all night. Had it not been out, my house would have been a crater, and I would not be typing this. I had leukemia when I was a kid. I was given a pretty low chance of survival. I got diagnosed the day after my 6th birthday and went into remission when I was 12. When I turned 14, they told me it wouldn't come back, but if it ever did, I would have the worst headache I've ever had in my life. I don't understand the headache part. I joked that I pulled one over on the Make-A-Wish people. They sent me to Disneyland, but I didn't die, so I kinda screwed them over on that deal. The Make-A-Wish people will be stoked for you. They don't want anyone to die, surely. It's a funny perspective that you stole from them, like Make-A-Wish is the Grim Reaper. I was supposed to be in class in the building the morning the shooter shot up Virginia Tech. Me and my buddy in the next dorm had the same class and would often take turns. We both woke up that morning and both agreed not to go. Turns out the sirens we heard when we woke up to get ready for class was the police response to the first victim that was in the neighboring dorm. We didn't think much of it cause casually there's an ambulance or something early mornings after weekends, cause people drink too much or whatever. It wasn't until we were looking out our window across campus, seeing everything unfold, and then the windows lighting up with gunshots, that we knew what was really going on. Then a bunch of fully kitted police came off the elevator with ARs, telling everyone to lock their doors and stay inside. Oh boy, fun times. When I was 17, I was going out with a girl from school. We smoked a little bit of hash. She was a lifeguard at a swimming pool. Her boss was a creepy guy in the late 20s who had a thing for my girlfriend. He found out we were going to a party and told the police that I was some major drug dealer. He gave the address of the party. At the last minute, we decided not to go. We cooked dinner for our mom and stayed in and watched TV. Smoked a joint in the garden. The party got raided, 2 vans full of police, and all they got was a couple of underage drinkers. Edit. How do we know he was the snitch? He told one of the lifeguards who told someone who told my girlfriend. No, I wasn't a drug dealer, but full disclosure, my girlfriend was supplying me in this instance. High school. I was hanging out with some bullies and some guys I knew drove up. Since they knew we played tennis, they offered to sell us some top-notch rackets at low prices. We were curious, so we went outside to look at what they had to offer. And indeed, the rackets were top-notch and brand new, so they still had security tags on them. We declined. It turns out they robbed a sporting goods store and shot a couple of clerks in the process. That's dumb as fuck. In high school, my friend knocked on my door and tried to get me to come out and hang out at night, and my mom refused to let me go out with them. I was mad about it until I learned that there was 4 other people hiding behind the trees that were going to jump me that night. I was working in the basement of a 1920s building. We were digging a new footer. They had dug out the basement to make a full-sized floor. It was raining like crazy. We got tired early and I left to go to my rock band's rehearsal space. The building collapsed 5 minutes after I left, and the biggest pile of bricks and rubble was in the exact place I was standing. She wrote my initials with an X-Acto knife in her leg to prove to me that she loved me and I should be with her. Kind of funny to think about how she explained these letters to her partners over the years. I avoided a school shooting. The professor was kind of lazy since the person after the one we were having right before Christmas. He asked us if we were going to attend, since some people skip the lessons before Christmas to go home, if they have families outside of the city and uni is in. Enough people raised their hands, so the professor canceled the lesson. So I and some other people managed to avoid the building that was later shot up. Some time before we would normally have the lecture, we would likely be waiting in the library or the hallways. Many people died. Thank you for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed all the stories I had to give to you. Remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Maybe leave a comment with your thoughts on a story or two. Now, without further ado, I'll see you all next time. Hasta la pasta.